My friends, we're beginning a new year, and more than ever, it's important to reaffirm our positive vision for a stronger future together. These are difficult times right now. This is a pivotal moment, not just for our country, but for the whole world. And as we head together into this new sitting of Parliament, we, all of us, we must be ready to meet this moment. And we must remember to always put Canadians at the center of everything we do. We must meet this moment for Catherine, a nurse in New Brunswick who says she worries every day that a patient could die waiting for care in the ER, as has happened already, because there aren't enough workers. Our universal public system has long been a model to the world, and Canadians rightly take enormous pride in it. But what Canadians are experiencing right now is simply not living up to that promise. And we're going to change that. Yes, we will invest more money. That's certainly part of the solution. But we'll also make sure Canadians see improvements and better results. We must meet this moment for families who are struggling to pay their bills. This week, Karina shared the story of a family in Burlington. They have a variable mortgage rate, and they were worried about having to give up their home, given the rise in interest rates. But the money they now save on childcare, because of our government cutting fees in half, directly offsets those increased mortgage payments so they can afford to stay in their home. We must meet this moment for communities like Williams Lake First Nation, Star Blanket Cree Nation, and Wazushkonigam Nation, who are experiencing the trauma of discovering potential unmarked graves. We've made a lot of progress on the path of reconciliation over the past years, but there's still much work to be done. We will continue to support Indigenous peoples through this while we build better schools, advance self-determination, preserve cultures and languages, and make sure all communities have clean drinking water. This is what our positive vision for the future is all about. Good jobs for the middle class, safe communities with clean air where families and workers are supported, and where everyone has a real and fair chance at success, an economy that works for all Canadians. On the world stage, Canada must meet this moment too. War has returned to Europe. We think of Ukrainians who fear for their lives when the Russian army is bombing their apartment buildings and hospitals. We think of the families without power to heat their homes in the middle of winter. We will continue to support Ukraine. We will continue to support them as they defend their freedom and ours, including by sending them tanks. Canada will continue to step up for the global South that is threatened by climate change and food insecurity and conflict and so many challenges that we will continue to be there for. When the world is more stable, we are all safer and more prosperous, including here at home. And as we're doing our part around the world, we're reminded that we can't take for granted what we have here in Canada. Every day, we must be ready to fight for our values, for our institutions, and mostly for Canadians. Now, there are politicians like Mr. Poilievre who have no real solutions to offer and who just try to exploit the anger and concerns that people do have. The Liberal vision for the future could not be more different than Mr. Poilievre's version. Speaking of that, I met Carl and Paran in Windsor last week. They both work at Stellantis, building hybrid cars. They're proud of what they do, powering the economy of today and tomorrow, and they should be. As should be the millions of Canadians workers who are skilled, ambitious, and who work very hard every day to build a better future for them, their families, their communities, and their country. With our investments, Canada's gone from 5th to 2nd in the world when it comes to battery supply chain, and we've secured thousands of good middle-class jobs. See, hard-working Canadians are building Canada's clean tech ecosystem. Lithium from Quebec and Alberta, rare earth elements from the Northwest Territories processed in Saskatoon, nickel from Northern Ontario, clean steel from Southern Ontario, clean aluminum from Quebec, companies in BC and the Lower Mainland making clean hydrogen and recycling EV batteries, ensuring Canada is recognized in the Global Clean Tech 100 list this year. Canada is rapidly becoming the energy and tech supplier a net zero world will need because Canadians have the skills a net zero world will demand. And while we were doing all this work last year, Mr. Poilievre was out talking about how we should all invest in Bitcoin to opt out of inflation after he watched videos on YouTube about it. Now, we all like YouTube, but it matters what content you watch and what you choose to amplify. Mr. Poilievre also used YouTube to court anti-women groups, something he's never apologized for and never explained. Now, he gives speeches to the Frontier Centre in Winnipeg, a group that said that it's a myth that residential schools robbed Indigenous children of their childhood. Not only is that incredibly hurtful, it's just plain wrong. When you twist the facts or make things up for political gain, that's not responsible leadership. Recent studies show that misinformation on COVID has cost hundreds of millions of dollars and thousands of lives. Peddling misinformation and disinformation has serious and devastating consequences. Mr. Poilievre has made a deliberate choice. But we, all of you in this room, have been there day in and day out to deliver for and to reassure our constituents through these tough times by sticking to facts and science. My friends, the world is facing a moment, and as Liberals and as Canadians and as a country, we must meet it. When Canada participated in the 2 world wars to defend freedom and democracy, the generation of our grandparents and great-grandparents met the moment and we punched above our weight. When, as a country, we face wildfires, floods, ice storms, hurricanes, we're there for one another and we meet the moment. We roll up our sleeves and rebuild what was lost bigger and stronger. When millennials graduated into the Great Recession in 2008, they got creative and they showed amazing and incredible resilience. When we were at the height of the pandemic, Canadians looked out for one another. I know we all want to forget about that pandemic, I get it. But as we get a little distance, I'm hearing more and more reflections on the early days of it, of how we were there for each other. We should remember, all of us, when we were all in this together, when everyone had signs up in their windows, when people were making noise and honking in support of our frontline health workers, not against them. We need your best ideas. We need your best efforts. We need you to keep stepping up in your communities. To this incredible team, thank you. You're all working the ground hard to get yourselves nominated once again, because we're in a minority parliament and we need to be ready for anything. So stay close to your communities and keep bringing their voices to Parliament. And let's continue to be the voice for Canadians. Let's continue to fight for families. Let's continue to fight for patients and healthcare workers. Let's continue to fight for facts and science and truth. Let's continue to fight for people who still feel left behind. My friends, let's continue doing this work for Canadians. Let's build an economy that works for all Canadians, and let's build a Canada where people thrive and where future generations will directly benefit from us having chosen to meet this moment. Merci beaucoup, mes amis.